Hey friends, it's Michael, and in today's video, I'm going to be answering some of your Horus Heresy assumptions and questions. So I've seen other people on YouTube do this kind of thing, and they usually post this on Instagram and get a bunch of responses, and then they go ahead and answer the questions on a YouTube video. So that's kind of what I'm going for today. So bear with me. This is kind of a sit and chat type of video, so I don't really have any of these responses like planned out or well thought out or anything. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first question is, and I'm going to try to pop these up on screen so you guys can see them as well. The first question is, did every legion have terror squads or just Night Lords? I'm pretty sure that terror squads are solely a Night Lords thing, and that the other 17 legions did not have terror squads. I'm pretty sure that's a unique Night Lord thing due to the way that the legion was created and where it was originally recruited from. And of course, the whole Conrad Kurz as evil Batman thing sort of ties into that as well, because Night Lords are all about terror tactics. Next up, I feel like there's a restriction to the 18 legions. Is there room for homebrew chapters? So yes and no, both of those at the same time. So there are 18 legions, generally because Horus Heresy is seen as a sort of like more historical focused war game. You do want to try to keep your armies as thematically accurate as possible. That said, there's a ton of variation in all of the legions as far as color schemes go. Obviously, some aren't going to vary too much from the standard color scheme, but in a legion of 150,000 Space Marines, who's to say that there weren't a couple of companies here and there who had maybe an inverted color scheme, different colors altogether. So all of that is entirely possible. Keep in mind that a lot of people who do play Horus Heresy are going to be more likely to appreciate a historical, quote-unquote, approach to your army building. So if you can find an example of an alternate color scheme in any of the Forge World books and manuals, and there are tons of color illustrations scattered all over the place, then you should totally go for it. There's a scheme in Book 3, Extermination, the Imperial Fists, that has kind of a reverse color scheme with black power armor and yellow shoulder pads, and that looks really cool. So that's an option. Alternately, you could do a Shattered Legions type of army list, which is remnants from multiple legions all working together. So for example, the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, and the Iron Hands often formed Shattered Legion armies. And the other option beyond that is doing Black Shields. And Black Shields are Space Marines that have basically said, screw the heresy, I'm out. I don't want any part of this. And in order to sort of wipe clean their former allegiances, they have burned their armor black. So there you go. I hope that answers the question. That was kind of a long one, but a really good one too. And I might actually cover that in another video at some point and show more examples from the various pieces of background lore, because it is a really interesting topic. Next one, assumption, a plastic Horus in some time, maybe more a wish than an assumption. I don't know if they're ever going to do a plastic Horus. It's possible, but Games Workshop right now, with the new edition, has actually been fairly closed in regards to here's what's coming, here's what we're doing, here's what we're planning. I suspect that we're going to see more plastic kits than any of us were expecting, but what those plastic kits are going to be is anybody's guess. If they can do Abaddon in plastic for 40k and have him look as amazing as he does, then I don't see any reason why they couldn't also do Horus in plastic in sort of a corrupted version like you see in the cinematic trailer. Although I think there you kind of step into that weird space of how close in design is this miniature to the plastic Abaddon that already exists, if that makes sense. New Praetors for every legion. Let's go! Totally agree with you. I think all of the remaining legions desperately need their own unique legion-specific Praetors. I think that's going to be really cool to see at some point. Hopefully Forge World will keep on doing those. They're probably going to be in resin rather than in plastic. But again, it's anybody's guess. So I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see. I'd love for World Eaters and Iron Warriors especially to get a little bit of love, because those two legions specifically seem to kind of be at the tail end of the Forgotten Legions spectrum when it comes to releases. Is Horus Heresy more for the aesthetics than the gameplay? Yes and no. I mentioned earlier in the video that a lot of Horus Heresy players really like to focus on building era-appropriate Legion armies. A lot of Heresy players want to play fully painted whenever possible, because having two fully painted armies playing against each other on the table just looks really cool. It looks amazing, and I can speak from past experience that when you have a 6x4 table covered in painted Space Marines and Space Marine tanks, people come up all the time and go, "Hey, this looks really cool. What are you guys playing? What armies are you guys playing today? How is the game going?" And so it's really cool to see that kind of I don't know. It's kind of an added incentive to make sure that you are playing with painted miniatures whenever possible. It does look really, really cool. And I think that the game obviously is a lot of fun. I spent 2 years running a monthly Horus Heresy game day at my local game store, and just because I wanted to play Horus Heresy against people. And so once a month we'd pick a day, I'd organize it, and we'd have anywhere between, sometimes we only had 2 people, including myself. Sometimes we had as many as 10 to 12 people out playing Horus Heresy. And so that was really, really cool. So I think the gameplay matters, but for me, the aesthetics are also just as important, if not a little bit more important. Obviously, gameplay is going to change with the new edition that's coming up soon. I'm looking forward to seeing how the new edition lets everybody play their armies. But yeah, I think equally important for me, there's a slight emphasis on aesthetics over gameplay, just because 90% of my time is spent painting minis instead of playing the game. Do you think we will get plastic breachers, a plastic breacher kit / upgrade parts? I hope so, because breachers look really cool and they're expensive, which is why I don't own any. But I think there's a lot of potential there for a plastic breacher kit. So fingers crossed that comes at some point in the future. If it does, I could see it coming with a Zone Mortalis expansion book, where the focus is on that sort of Zone Mortalis play in abandoned installations, close quarters fighting, ship-to-ship boarding actions, that type of thing. That's probably the perfect place to put out a plastic breacher squad. if it's ever coming. Will we see more fleshing out of the lost Primarchs in Heresy 2.0? I don't think so. I think that Games Workshop is always going to leave the 2nd and the 11th Primarchs as mysteries, as much as they can, at least, because a large part of why those 2 legions, I think, were originally left blank is for players to kind of create their own lore and their own Space Marine legions and armies based around those lost concepts. So I don't think Games Workshop itself is going to do too much more on the lore behind those 2 and the Lost Legions. There are, what I think is really cool is that if you've read a lot of the official lore from the Black Books and as well as the Black Library novels, I think there are a lot of hints and teasers here and there about what may have happened to those 2 legions, but they never come right out and say, hey, here's why the 2nd Legion is no longer in existence, and here's exactly what happened to these guys. And I like that mystery aspect. I think one of the worst things that ever happened to regular Warhammer 40k is bringing some of the Primarchs back, bringing Mortarion back, bringing Guilliman back. I think the Primarchs especially are better left in the sands of time, especially in Warhammer 40k. So I think in that setting in particular, what originally interested me a lot in the setting and the grim darkness of that far future is that during this period, the Horus Heresy, a huge civil war went down. 18 Space Marine legions fought against each other. The Primarchs were often on the battlefield, and then they just slowly disappeared, and nobody's exactly sure where most of them went. And so I think bringing back Guilliman and Mortarion kind of removes a lot of that mystery of what originally made the setting so interesting for me. So I'm hoping that Games Workshop never brings any more information on the 2nd and the 11th Legions or their lost Primarchs beyond more maybe hints and teasers about what happened. I hope that's a good answer for you guys. Okay, let me see here. Oh man, some of these are really cool responses actually. So somebody asked how to structure some thematic armies for each legion, which I think could be an entire series of videos on how to do some unique Night Lords armies, how to do unique Ultramarine armies, and so on and so forth. So I think that one I might leave for another video, because I do want to give a little bit more time to that answer at some point. Somebody else asked the Imperial Army during the Heresy, especially modeling them to be unique. I know almost nothing about the Imperial Army or the Solar Auxilia during the Horus Heresy, so that's a topic I'm not well versed to speak on personally. And that could probably also be its own very, very long video. But if you're doing that kind of modeling project, here's where I would recommend looking at all of your STLs and your 3D printed options, because I guarantee there are people out there making really, really cool far future soldiers that you can use as stand-ins for an Imperial Army, and they will probably look fantastic. If I'm wrong on that, and there are no people and no sculptors making digital files for Imperial Army counts as miniatures, somebody please get on that, because that is something that really needs to happen. Because I think the Imperial Army and the Solar Auxilia as concepts are really fantastic. I used to have a regular opponent who played Solar Auxilia, and playing against his army was always a huge blast. It was a ton of fun. The miniatures look incredible. I think in terms of design space for that type of themed army, in this type of Warhammer setting, I think there's so much room for creativity. You could draw off of John Blanche's artwork. You could draw from well-known sci-fi settings like Dune. You could draw from historical settings. You could mix some World War I and World War II in there. So I think that design space is pretty much infinite. If I had the skill to sculpt digital files, I probably would jump right into that, but I don't. So hopefully somebody else is. Okay, I think I've got my handy data pad right here that I'm reading these responses off of. And hopefully this video was interesting for you guys. Let me know in the comments below. If you felt that I earned your subscription, please hit that little subscribe button. Leave a comment, leave a like if you can, share it with your grandma, and I will try to flesh out some of these questions because I think they're really interesting and there's space for longer videos there. Look out for a part 2 at some point, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.